This is the second in a series of 3 videos in which I'm demonstrating creating a 2-tiered certification authority with a standalone root CA, which has been set up in part 1. I'm now moving on to creating an Enterprise Subordinate Certification Authority. I'm going to add the Certificate Services role to the Subordinate CA. I'm then going to submit a request from the Enterprise Subordinate to my Standalone Root CA for a Subordinate CA certificate. I'm then going to issue that certificate to the Subordinate CA. My machine mem01 is a member of the harkit.co domain, and this machine is going to function as my Enterprise Subordinate Certification Authority. So I'm going to add the Active Directory Certificate Services role to this machine, and I'm going to specify that it is an Enterprise Subordinate CA. So I'm going to add the Certification Authority role. I'm also going to add the Certification Authority Web Enrollment Service as well, so that my users have a web page they can visit when they need to request a new certificate. While that's installing, during my previous demonstration I copied across or published a certificate revocation list from my root CA, which you'll see there is on my desktop. I'm going to copy that file over to my Subordinate Certification Authority, and the reason I'm going to do that is because I've added the Subordinate CA as the publishing location for the certificate revocation list from my root certification authority. As my root certification authority is going to be kept offline, there needs to be a server that's online which my users can query for certificate revocation information. So I'm pasting the certificate revocation list that I published from my root CA into the web root, the www.root folder of my standalone, my Enterprise Subordinate CA rather, into the cert data folder there, so root CA. So the installation is now finished of my certification authority, so I'm just going to configure the service. Running this time as the domain administrator. I'm going to configure both certification authority as well as web enrollment. And Enterprise, this time Subordinate. I'm going to create a new private key using the same hashing algorithm and key length as the root CA. I'm going to call this the Harkit CA. And I'm going to save my Subordinate CA certificate request in a file on the C drive. So I'm going to click Next there, accept the default location for the database and log files, and then click Configure. Now that's finished, I'm going to go to my certification authority, and you'll see because it currently doesn't have a Subordinate CA certificate installed on it, the service will not be allowed to start. You can see the service is currently disabled. So I'm going to copy across from my Subordinate CA this request file. I'm going to transfer that onto my root certification authority, which I created in part 1. I'm going to right click the certification authority and say I want to submit a new request. I'm going to choose that request file I've just generated on the subordinate. That request will have been added to the pending request container, which I'm now going to right click and say I want to issue, and there we find the issued certificate for my Subordinate CA. That certificate now needs to be copied across to the Subordinate Certification Authority so that it can start. So I'm going to copy that to a file. I'm going to transfer that across the network directly to my Subordinate Certification Authority. So once that's been copied across, I should be able to, if I hop back onto my Subordinate Certification Authority, I should now be able to right click and say I wish to install a CA certificate, and if I choose the certificate that I've just issued from my root CA, to my subordinate, I should hopefully be able to start the certification authority. So in this demonstration I have set up a root certification authority in part 1 as a standalone root certification authority. I've published the certificate revocation list and added this server mem01 as a publishing point. I've then issued a subordinate CA certificate to my standalone subordinate CA. The last piece of the puzzle really is just to take the root certification authority offline. So its work is now done here. So if I go to my root certification authority, if I needed to, I may have to issue additional subordinate CA certificates, but for the time being that machine no longer needs to be on the network, which allows me to protect the private key of my root certification authority. In the third and final part of this certification authority demonstration, I'm going to show you how to enable key archival, which is a feature first introduced in Server 2012 R2, which is a very useful way of allowing certificate administrators to recover users' private keys should those private keys become lost or corrupted.